one of the reasons I think Americans in general, followers of democracy, anybody who's kind of almost anti-communist or has leftism aversion, they might feel that, the more parties, the better, right? The more political groups there are, the better. This in theory, in their minds, if there's all these different parties to express themselves in their minds, then it would be better for people to have a diversity of thought, that people would have different ways to align themselves, especially in a parliamentary democracy, not particularly in the United States two-party democracy. But what you find is that, many liberals and conservatives and basically just, non-communists are pro multi-parties. And as I talked about a little bit in the partisanship video of liberals need a wake-up call, I think just in this, I really want to pinpoint why America is a one-party state already. And we hear one-party state, and we think that's a little sus. We, especially as Americans, were conditioned to think that, one-party state fascism or one-party state, evil communism, and how are we going to, express ourselves and vote and stuff. Well, it's actually counterintuitive because a one-party state actually... not just the state part, just the one party, right? All under one banner of communism, for example. The major benefit of that is a comprehensive agenda. It's everybody's on the same page, the same. Even if there's a disagreement or dissent and discussion about different policies, there's a thorough trajectory towards communism. Even in Soviet Union, people like Khrushchev, who was conservative communist and did pass bad policies that contributed to the regression of that great nation, but nonetheless, they still conservative or still communist, absolutely. And communists in Soviet Union leadership and all kinds of communes and commune experiments throughout history all have different iterations of not just dispositions and beliefs, but just entire different ways of just looking at the world, not just through Marxist analysis and historical materialism and all that fun stuff. What you think is actually multiple expression in parliamentary democracy. Let's say it has 5 parties, and there's like a fascist one, classic, libertarian one, socialist, and then liberals and Republicans, and let's throw a communist in there too, so make it 6. There might be all these different ways that you might think we can identify and everyone can choose their thing. But what this actually causes is basically barriers and obstacles where people can no longer, we can't actually have productive discussion because everybody's operating in their own camps. Everybody's in their own little sections. We can't have a discussion about, what's the fastest way to get to communism or what's the best way to ensure national health care if we're too busy arguing with Republicans that health care is a right. We can't, talk about how just having like diversity quotas or whatever the fuck that liberals are up to with these, like some of these companies these days, is anything close to a sufficient way of bringing in the actual change that they want. We could go down the list of basically anyone that's not socialist, communist, or anarchist. More often than not, they're bound to be completely misunderstanding the political nature of things. And maybe people listening are like, well, yeah, of course you're going to say that because you're a communist. I mean, it seems like that on paper. It seems like that immediately at surface level. I promise you, if you keep listening to my stuff, you'll quickly see that it's not because of that there's more to it than that. In typical American extravagance, as I'm sure many of you heard this line, the America is already a one-party state, but just in traditional extravagance of it, it's there's two. Both the Democratic and Republican parties are capitalist parties in America. Most Americans recognize the issue between these two parties and wish they could have more, but the more parties that we'd had would just be pro-capitalist unless they are anti-capitalist, which are only anarchist, socialist, and communist parties. In other parliamentary democracies around the world, like in European countries or Canada, for white Western countries, for example, I'm not too educated on other ones just yet, you come across a very similar situation where people think that they can identify differently with these different parties, but what you end up getting is these blocks, these obstacles of actual unity. And what we thought was partisanship ended up just being performative, political theater. And it's causing us to really stunt our own progress. And I think at the end of the day, it's just really important to remember that the United States is a one-party state already. and it's a one-party state against you. All these democracies, even if they have all the parties in the world, they still serve the dictatorship of the bourgeoisie, and that is why none of these people are free. Maybe I'll talk more about this in the next one. Thanks again for being here, guys. See you in the next one. Yeah, take it easy. Peace and love.